Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to have a part 2 interview, which is typically not a thing that lenses have, and it's on the 7Artisans 35mm F1.4. Now for those of you who aren't coming over from the previous video, I did a review and image quality and everything was great until I stopped it up. The thing is, that was a pre-release, and when I contacted 7Artisans about it, they said, oh, that's just the pre-release firmware, don't worry about it. The focus hunting issue I was describing to them was going to be fixed in the final firmware. So I made sure to mention that in the review. The issue I was talking about that required the firmware update is that once you stop this up to F4, it had massive autofocus issues. Doesn't matter if you were in continuous autofocus or single point autofocus, this thing hunted like crazy. And that's what prompted me to actually reach out to 7Artisans. I was like, look, clearly it works well wide open, and that's when it's actually difficult. I know like the aperture stays open, whatever the case is, but I never had a problem hitting focus while this was wide open. So something is up with the firmware. I'm glad that they already knew about it. And again, just to reiterate, they said it was going to be solved by launch. So check it out. Unless you only shoot wide open, then you probably don't care. And then I checked in a week after it was released because I still didn't get an email with the updated firmware. Figured I'd do like a quick follow-up reel or something. And that's when it turned into a 2-month endeavor to try to get some answers as to why this issue was happening, because as it turned out, it actually was not a firmware issue, at least not entirely. Now, before I get into it, to their credit, they could have blown me off. I am a small YouTuber, but I take this stuff very seriously because I'm also a working professional in the field, and they took it very seriously as well. So while I was waiting for the fix to happen and they gave me a target date and everything, I actually went to the Build Expo in New York and I met some of their US branch, the people who at least service the US market, and I spoke to them about the lens, and they also took it very seriously. So it was great to see a company very receptive to some very real feedback. And I mean, I've been in the industry for 10 years, and let me tell you, even as a paying customer, you don't see that too often. And over the course of about 2 months, we went back and forth trying to make sure that they replicated the exact issue that I was talking about. And again, the issue was whenever I'd stop the lens up to anything above an f2.8, it would start hunting like crazy. Basically, the autofocus was completely unreliable at that point, which is very odd considering that when you stop a lens up, that's when it's easier for everything to be in focus versus when it's wide open, because it performed very well when it was wide open. Eventually, they put me in contact with someone in their EU branch who was doing the actual testing, and this is the original Mark 1 right here. This is the Mark 2 update with the new firmware fix that they sent over my way, and they said that it wasn't the easiest firmware update to do either. So for anyone who is experiencing this issue, that they told me to tell you guys to reach out to them. Like if you're in the US, reach out to their US wing. If you're in Canada, to their Canadian wing, so on and so forth. Initially, I thought maybe I just got a bad copy because I started watching other review videos for after the embargo lifted, and no one else really seemed to mention it. Although after speaking to the person in the EU, they said, yeah, a couple of other people have made us aware of this problem. As it turns out, and I think this is only on the Fuji X models, there was a small design flaw, potentially just in the mount, where the rear lens element was too close to the sensor. And I guess based on what happens internally on this thing, when you start stopping it up, the glass was too close to the sensor, and that was like taking it below the minimum focus distance, something along those lines. So I asked them, what are we gonna do? They said, give me a little time. And they were pretty good about it. This is actually why I'm doing a follow-up, because I think like from a brand, how a brand represents itself, it's kind of important, because I've been blown off by brands that had problems in the past and I just wouldn't publish the review videos because on the off chance that someone would still buy it. They gave me updates every week on the progress. Like this week, we didn't get a chance to get to it. Following week, someone did something different. They're out in the field testing it to see how it performs and everything. And then like 2 weeks ago from the filming of this video, I got an email stating, hey, we're sending you another lens with the updated firmware, check it out. Eventually I got it, popped it onto the lens, and it was fixed, but not in the way that I was hoping it would, but it's still much better than it was in the first iteration that's mounted on the XT3 right now. So now the lens will work flawlessly in single autofocus mode. Whatever it is that did it, and the previous version, I'm gonna be overlaying a lot of visuals when I'm talking about this, but the previous iteration, I even just tested it out right now. Single autofocus mode still gave it that issue, but with the new one, single autofocus mode will solve that problem. So you can stop up to f8 all the way to f16 if you really felt like it, and you would be fine. So if you're a person who doesn't really use, bug. So if you're a person who doesn't really use continuous autofocus, then this isn't really a problem. I kind of like default on all my cameras. CAF, can you see it? It's getting dark. But yeah, so I always leave it on continuous autofocus. And I'm a video guy, so I'm used to shooting manual as well. But the whole point of this thing is that it's an f1.4 autofocus lens that's relatively inexpensive compared to other f1.4 autofocus lenses. So now the issue is resolved, and I wanted to make this video as an update because I'll be totally honest, when the lens was released and people were telling me that the problem wasn't fixed in the comments with the firmware that it was released with, I came in pretty hot, understandably so, because I take things very seriously. Like if you tell me something is going to be fixed and I communicate it, I expect it to be fixed because I'm giving people my honest thoughts on a camera or a lens or a light or whatever it is I'm reviewing. And that's my credibility. People are coming to me for opinions on equipment, and I kind of enjoy making the videos, but I've got a day job, you know what I mean? I'm not scamming anyone today, tomorrow, or ever. That's not really my persona. And I felt like, this might be a brand who's trying to leverage a parasocial relationship to scam a bunch of people out of money. Thankfully, was not the case. But anyway, so all the stuff that I said about it initially in the last review, especially when you're taking portraits, and that day was a crazy day for photos to begin with, was in the middle of the day, there was no cloud coverage, and the photos still came out pretty good. And on top of that, it handles flares relatively well for an inexpensive, under $200 lens. Not a lot of ghosting. Of course, if you're shooting directly in the sun, you're going to get some of it. But overall, it was an all right lens all around. I just wish it didn't have that AFC issue. Again, to the folks at 7Artisans that I was talking to via email, to the folks over at the booth in the Build Expo, thank you again for being really courteous with this and kind of like explaining the process to me so I could relay it accordingly in the comments and now in the video to everyone. And yeah, you know, it's unfortunate that this issue popped up, but it is what it is. Company's got a great reputation otherwise. And I think it's worth exploring the other lenses in the future. I don't know if any of you are primarily video shooters, but they also have like a cinema line of lenses that I was looking at prior to actually like buy something in-house so I'm not constantly renting stuff. And their line is something I took into consideration as well. When it comes to higher end glass, service is just as important as how good the product is. And they sold me on service. All right, so it's getting dark right now. There are a lot of gnats in the air. That is super gross. Pretty sure it's gonna start raining soon. And that means this video is over. So I'll catch you guys at the next one. And if you have any other questions, let me know in the comments below. If you have anything that you'd like me to ask them, anything you need clarified yourself, feel free to email them, but also maybe let me know and maybe it'll get me an answer faster just because I've already made it through all the automated filters and everything. See ya.